Have you ever tried so hard at something, but no matter what you did, you always failed? Tried again, failed again. You gave it your best, but nothing changed. Did it feel like the world was against you? That you were meant to lose, but you just weren't good enough? You are not alone. Meisho Doto's entire life was full of struggles and setbacks, but he always persisted through each failure. You know the saying, every dog has its day? Turns out, it's not exclusive to dogs. Our adorable Umamusume goofball was born in Ireland on March 25th, 1996, and was imported to Japan by an undisclosed horse owner. Doto was produced from the pairing of Big Stone and Princess Rima, who are both descendants of Northern Dancer. His Irish father, Big Stone, is the only French-trained horse to win both the Sussex and Queen Elizabeth II stakes, which are considered as the most important G1 mile races in Britain. Although Doto's American mother, Princess Rima, has no racing record, she was the daughter of Affirmed, the American Triple Crown winner during 1978. 2 years after importing Doto, the owner decided to retire from horse ownership, but this came with a difficult choice: sell Doto, return him to Ireland, or slaughter. The obvious choice would be to sell, but that proved to be more difficult than expected. This person's farm was small, and they did not have a wide circle of connections. Luckily, Yoshio Matsumoto, a contrarian horse owner, was notified about this person's predicament by one of his associates and offered to purchase the colt. Unlike most other owners, Matsumoto-san did not care for distinguished bloodlines or prestigious farms. Instead, he relied on the recommendations of others and bought inexpensive horses from small farms and breeders to emphasize the importance of supporting smaller horse communities. He was well liked by everyone and was often referred to as Meisho-san out of respect. Meisho is the title Matsumoto uses for all his horses, with no exception. The title Meisho is a combination of the first kanji from Akashi, Matsumoto's hometown, and his family name. The first character can be read as Mei or Akarui, while the second character is read as Sho or Matsu. In both cases, the former are using the Chinese way of reading kanji and the latter are Japanese. Furthermore, the name Doto means raging waves. Matsumoto-san chose Doto's name from a list of suggestions he collected from known associates that was befitting of the horse's characteristics. He was also the type of owner who entrusted everything to the trainer and stable staff, including which jockeys to use and the races to enter. He vocalized, "I love horses, but I know nothing of them. I'll leave them in your care." Meisho Doto entered the Isao Yasuda stables at the Rito Training Center in the year of 1998. Trainer Isao said Doto had an impressive, muscular upper body and good speed too, but he was slow to mature. Additionally, he was plagued with chronic periostitis, also known as bucked shins, which is when the connective tissues around the cannon bone are inflamed. Bucked shins are directly attributed to intense training and racing schedules, so about 70% of thoroughbred racehorses have this affliction during their first 6 months of training. This made Doto's progression lag so much that his debut race was delayed until the new year. Doto's slow growth is represented in the game when she passes out after her debut race, and the physician tells her that she is not race ready, signifying that her body is still maturing. The game even gives her a debuff that drains her energy every time she races to reinforce her slow progress, and it doesn't go away until after the Fall Tenno show of her classic year, which is almost an exact mirror of what happens in real life. On January 6, 1999, Meisho Doto finally had his debut race at the 1800-meter dirt Kyoto track with Yasuhiko Yasuda, the trainer's son, on the saddle. January 6 is also Matsumoto-san's birthday. Isao declared, "I have prepared a birthday gift for the owner. This horse will definitely win." On this beautiful day with good track conditions, Matsumoto-san was brought to the racecourse to witness Doto's debut race and was gifted with a shiny second place present for his 61st birthday. Completely red in the face, the trainer expressed excessive embarrassment. Just 10 days later, Meisho Doto returned to the same dirt course at Kyoto. The jockey, Yasuhiko, strenuously made his way towards Doto, but before he could climb on the saddle, his father took one look and said, "Oh no, you are not riding with this high fever. I will ask another." Cold with sweat, Yasuhiko stared back with unwavering determination. Let me ride, father. I need to redeem my failure. I must do this. Unable to deny his son's resolve, Isao granted him permission to race. Yasuhiko's tenacity paid off because Meisho Doto won the race by almost 2 lengths. Afterwards, Doto's legs were slightly swollen, so he took a 2-month break before moving on to the next dirt race. He ran in the Hanshin 1800-meter wet track, but unfortunately finished in 4th place. On April 18, Meisho Doto ran in the 1700-meter dirt Kaido show and was able to achieve 1st place despite the rainy weather and soft ground. On that very same day, the Satsuki show is taking place, but Doto was barred from competing for being a foreign-born horse, which would explain why Meisho Doto was a spectator instead of a competitor during the first episode of Road to the Top. Since its inception, the Japanese classic races prohibited foreign horses from participating. The foreigner ban would not be lifted until 2002. The game illustrates this by having Doto pass out from the mere thought about entering the Japanese derby when the trainer brings it up. If the player still decides to enter the Satsuki show or the Japanese derby, Doto must face off against Admire Vega and TM Opera O, with both of them sporting a staggering speed stat of 400, when the typical stats are under 250. The developers made it crystal clear. Meisho Doto is not meant to be in these races. 1 month later, Doto ran in another 1700-meter dirt race on the same track, but in sunny and good conditions instead of rainy weather. Unfortunately, he came in 8th place, and the lack of moisture in the ground applied more pressure on his legs with every forceful gallop. By the end of the race, his legs were swollen and pulsating with burning pain once again. Doto was forced to go on a 4-month break until September. When he returned to the racetrack, the trainer decided he did not have a good aptitude for running on dirt courses, so they permanently switched to turf tracks for the remainder of his career. He competed 3 times in September at the Sapporo racecourse, but his performance was disappointing to say the least. 8th place, 4th, and 2nd. Since his last victory, Meisho Doto lost 4 consecutive races, but there was a silver lining. The team started to realize that Doto was stronger at medium-length distances. During the fall season, Doto was finally able to achieve 2 first-place finishes at the Kyoto racecourse in October and November, but he suffered a devastating defeat at the Roko Stakes the day after Christmas. Nobody could figure out why he came in last place because his health and legs were completely fine. Out of the 11 races Doto ran during his classic year, he only had 4 wins, and they were all in ungraded races. The races he competed in are of such low status that most of them do not even exist in the game. In the new year, Meisho Doto entered the Nikkei Shinshuhai. Shortly after leaving the gate, he was cut off and quickly surrounded by the other horses. Fortunately, a small path opened up, so he weaved his way through the blockade of horses and escaped to the outside. Doto stayed at the outer edge while being within the top 5 racers throughout the middle leg. He inched his way to the front of the pack through the last corner, but was overtaken in the home stretch and finished half a length behind the winning horse. It would be a month and a half before his next race. Around this time, Meisho Doto's body was beginning to show signs of developing into adulthood, and he was finally able to train normally. In early March, Doto proved his strength at the G3 Chukyokinen when he won by 3 lengths and set a new course record of 1 minute and 59.1 seconds. After struggling so much in ungraded races during his first year, Meisho Doto won his first graded race. He was finally race ready, but that only means his opponents are about to get much more difficult. We're playing in the big leagues now. The team was aiming for the Spring Tenno Show as Doto's first G1 appearance, which means he needed to win the Nikkei Show at the end of March. Almost immediately after leaving the gate, Meisho Doto was sandwiched between Stay Gold and Grass Wonder. He ran to the far outside when the opportunity arose and held his position within the top 3 racers through the final turn. Despite having an open path to the finish, he could not close the gap in time and finished in 3rd place with almost 2 lengths behind Stay Gold. The Tenno Show was no longer possible, but the team continued pushing forward and pursued the Takarazuka Kinen instead. After winning the Open Grade Metropolitan Stakes in April and then the G2 Kinko Show the month after, Doto was voted as the 6th most popular in the Takarazuka Kinen. On the day of the race, underneath the pitter-patter sound of raindrops hitting umbrellas, you could hear eager spectators arguing over which horse would be victorious. It's going to be TM Upper O. He has 3 consecutive victories. No, Grass Wonder will win. He's already beaten Opera O at the Arima Kinen. Unfortunately, Meisho Doto's G1 debut was overshadowed by the battle between TM Opera O and Grass Wonder. Additionally, another Meisho horse, Meisho Odo, was participating in this race, wearing the same jockey uniform, so Doto stood out even less. None of this mattered. The only thing Doto needs to worry about is to run as best he can. And that's what he did. He charged forward and maintained a position towards the front, through the first corner, and then the second. He continued holding on in the middle straight, into the third corner and out the fourth. While spurting down the home stretch, as he passed the lead horse, Meisho Doto was overtaken right before the finish line and came in second place, a head's length behind TM Opera O. The team slowly left the stands to go meet their horse. Second is good for his first G1. Maybe the outcome of the race would have been different if Doto had his regular jockey on the saddle, but Yasuhiko was suspended 15 days before the Takarazuka Kinen after illegally cutting off another racer's path while riding Azuma Shiza. To make matters worse, Yasuhiko was known to have an alcohol problem. He occasionally rode while drinking and even skipped out on training sessions because he was simply too drunk. However, I think it's important to point out that he was never drunk while on the saddle and never harmed the horses in any way. So what does a man like this do when he's suspended from riding? He drinks. He makes bad decisions. And he gets arrested for driving under the influence. 3 months after the Takarazuka Kinen, Meisho Doto entered the all-comers race with another new jockey, Hitoshi Matoba, who was the primary rider for Reischauer and Grass Wonder. Doto dashed out of the gate and chased after the lead horse, but he made sure to not be too close. Doto remained a moderate one-length distance between himself and the lead horse throughout the race until he left the final corner. Then, he maneuvered away from the inner rail and passed the lead horse on the outside as they both ran down the final stretch. Doto finished the race 2 lengths ahead and claimed his second G2 victory. By winning the all-comers race, Doto acquired the right to compete in the Fall Tenno Show where he would face off against his adversary once more. Unfortunately, Doto was at a disadvantage by being in the second farthest gate from the inner rail, which forced him to hastily take to the front while gradually pushing towards the inside. Although he did manage to get to the inner rail shortly after the first corner, another threat was quietly stalking him. Ignorant of what lurks behind, Doto calmly ran towards the front and prepared for the home stretch. Right after accelerating, a narrow gap opened on his right rear and the Overlord was released from his cage. Just as Meisho Doto passed the lead horse, TM Opera O blew past him and finished 2.5 lengths in front. At the end of November, horses from all over the world gathered at the Tokyo racecourse to test their might. Naturally, Meisho Doto and TM Opera O were in attendance, as well as the Double Crown winner of that year. Additionally, Yasuhiko Yasuda was finally off probation, so he returned to the saddle. Doto was poorly positioned at the outer starting gates once again, but when the race began, something unexpected happened. Stay Gold, who usually runs in the middle, sprinted all the way to the front and acted as the lead horse for the entire race. There were no dedicated frontrunners participating.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
He was kind of terrible at front running because the pace was pretty slow compared to the previous year, which was 0.2 seconds faster per furlong on average. Everyone let Stay Gold do his thing and kept pace behind him. Of course, once they got onto the final straight, the time for horsing around was over. Meisho Doto, TM Opera O, and Fantastic Light started passing Stay Gold at the 200-meter mark. All three were tightly grouped up as they crossed the finish line with the exact same time of 2 minutes and 26.1 seconds. Opera O was first by less than a head's length, and Meisho Doto barely managed to get second by a nose. On Christmas Eve, while couples all over Japan were going on dates, eating KFC, or visiting shrines, the power couple of Meisho Doto and TM Opera O enjoyed their own outing at the Nakayama racecourse. At 3:20 p.m., the gates burst open and a stampede of hooves echoed throughout the racetrack. For the third time in a row, Meisho Doto started from the outer gates. He was completely surrounded shortly after moving closer to the inner rail. It was still the early stages of the race, so Yasuhiko maintained his composure and rode as normal. After leaving the fourth corner, all competitors slowly began fanning out as they started their final spurt. A small gap towards the outside opened and allowed Doto to squeeze through, but TM Opera O pursued him so tightly that they were practically touching. The rivals ran side by side while passing the cluster of racers until no other horses were at their front. The results of the 45th Arimakinen played out almost exactly like the Japan Cup. Both horses finished with the exact same time, except Meisho Doto was behind by the tip of his nose. During the entire year, Meisho Doto did not beat TM Opera O a single time. Although Opera O won every race in the Autumn Triple Crown, they were all spectacularly close. The total distance between Meisho Doto and TM Opera O for all three races was only 2.5 lengths. Additionally, while TM Opera O achieved the title of the Autumn Triple Crown winner, which another horse has achieved, there has only ever been one runner-up in all three races for the Autumn Triple Crown, Meisho Doto. This achievement earned him the title, the strongest second in history. Doto went on a 3-month break during the winter and resumed racing on March 24, 2001. He finished the G2 Nikkei show with a strong victory, leading by a difference of 3/4 length. 1 month later, Meisho Doto faced off against TM Opera O once more at the Spring Tenno show. The strongest contenders for the race lingered in the back half while Seiyun Sky led the pack, but his position was dramatically overturned on the straight before the final corner. Every horse broke away when coming out of the turn, and although Meisho Doto was able to pass the lead horse, Narita Top Road, he was still half a length behind TM Opera O when he crossed the finish line. After 5 consecutive losses to the same horse, the jockey, Yasuhiko, was at his wit's end. I'll get it next time. His specialty is the medium distance. If I lose the Takarazuka Kinen, I'll quit. It would be 2 months before the Takarazuka Kinen where Meisho Doto would have another opportunity for revenge. During this time, the team, and especially Yasuhiko, devised a plan to overthrow Opera O. Gather round, everyone. A direct challenge is a bad idea. We cannot defeat him in a battle of power. This is what we'll do. On the fated day, Meisho Doto walks into his gate, and who does he see to the left? None other than our antagonist, the Overlord. Every horse bolted out when the gates opened. Doto settled towards the front among the top 5 competitors, with TM Opera O on his tail. He kept his pace steady up until the 800-meter remaining mark and steadily began moving up to the front, just as they planned. By the time Opera O realized what had just happened, Meisho Doto was already lined up with the lead horse as they approached the final corner. Even if he wanted to chase after Doto, he could not. The other horses took advantage of the gap and completely locked him in place. Opera O was forced to move to the far outside to get through the blockade of horses. There were 5 lengths of distance between Meisho Doto and TM Opera O when they left the last corner. Doto was fighting for first against Hot Secret at the 200-meter mark, with TM Opera O in hot pursuit. At the last few remaining meters, Meisho Doto passed Hot Secret and finished in first, a full length ahead of TM Opera O. After 5 consecutive losses against his greatest adversary, Meisho Doto was finally able to win on their 6th confrontation. This victory was a monumental achievement for everyone involved. It was the first time in 28 years that the owner, Yoshio Matsumoto, laid claim to a G1 victory. It was the only time Isao Yasuda achieved the G1 title as a trainer. And of course, it was Meisho Doto's first and only G1 victory of his career. Doto raced 3 more times during the year of 2001 and met his rival in all remaining races. Meisho Doto came in at 3rd place during the Fall Tenno show, behind TM Opera O by 2 lengths and with Agnes Digital as champion. At the Japan Cup, Doto finished in 5th place behind Jungle Pocket, TM Opera O, Narita Top Road, and Stay Gold. On December 23rd, Meisho Doto entered the Arimakinen as his retirement race. The team decided to end his career because of the limitations on foreign-born horses, and Doto was already 5 years old. Doto proceeded to run as usual and chased after the lead while maintaining a position within the top 5 racers. Even though Doto was not near the front during the last push for the finish, he was able to have one last bout with his rival. Both horses gave it their all, and Meisho Doto finished in 4th place. He beat Opera O by less than a head's length. On New Year's Day of 2002, Meisho Doto and TM Opera O held a joint retirement ceremony together at the Kyoto racecourse. Everyone in attendance celebrated the strongest 2 horses of the 20th century and one of the greatest rivalries in Japanese horse racing history. Out of their 9 fierce exchanges on the track, Meisho Doto only had 1 first-place victory over TM Opera O. His final career record stands at 10 wins out of 27 starts. Of the 72 horses Doto fought, 19 were G1 winners, and of those 19, TM Opera O was the only horse that defeated Meisho Doto. On the 17th of January, Meisho Doto moved to East Stud Ranch in Urakawa County, Hokkaido, to begin his new life as a breeding stallion. And can you guess who was there waiting for him? That's right, none other than TM Opera O. Even off the track, Doto could not escape his lifelong rival. Despite their past history and purposefully being placed in the same pasture next to each other, Doto and Opera O hardly interacted. At most, they occasionally stared at each other. Over nearly a decade, TM Opera O traveled between Urakawa County and Hidaka County. By 2011, he stopped coming back to East Stud Ranch, and Meisho Doto never saw his rival again. Similar to his father, Big Stone, Doto was considered to have an unsuccessful stallion career. The number of foals he was able to conceive decreased every year. His last foal was born in 2012. Over the course of 10 years as a breeding stallion, Doto produced only 270 foals. 241 of them were racers, but only 53 were able to win. None were in graded races. Additionally, since Doto's breeding career ended early, he lost to TM Opera O one last time as a stallion. In 2017, Doto's owner, Matsumoto, was approached by the non-profit organization Retired Horse Association and asked if he would transfer ownership over to them. The association's mission is to raise awareness for retired racehorses and provide them with a second life, as most horses are slaughtered after their racing career, especially those with poor career records. Only a select few are allowed to enter breeding farms. Matsumoto-san, who is prepared to care for Doto for the rest of his life like he does with his other horses, faithfully transferred the title to support the cause. The next year, on November 29, 2018, Meisho Doto was moved to his first foster home at Versailles Resort Farm. He did not go alone. Taiki Shuttle, who was also living at East Stud Ranch and entered the Retired Horse Association at the same time as Doto, was his travel buddy. After acclimating to their new home, both horses were castrated in the new year.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yup!
During their years together at Versailles Farm, Doto and Taiki became extremely close. They grazed together, ate together, and spent their nights in the stables adjacent to each other. Taiki likes to lead and take control, while Doto was docile most of the time. Meisho Doto was so gentle that he let a stray tanuki share his stable during the winter and got along with every animal at the farm. There's a well-known video of Doto among a herd of young goats. He majestically stands there throughout the video and barely moves the entire time. When one of the smaller goats bumps his head, Doto hardly reacts. His gentle demeanor earned him the nickname of King of the Goats. Even before his castration, when Doto was at East Stud Ranch with Opera O, the ranchers claim that Doto barely moves in his pasture. It's so strange that Doto's owner deliberately chose his name as Raging Waves when you consider his tame personality. On June 16, 2021, Meisho Doto and Taiki Shuttle were relocated to a new home at Northern Lake Farm. The two gleefully spent their days together and their bond grew even closer. They often rubbed their faces together or would look around the corner of their respective stable to check on the other. Sadly, these blissful days were short-lived. Just 1 year after moving to Northern Lake, on August 17 at 5 a.m., Taiki Shuttle was discovered as deceased in his stable. He passed away in his sleep at the age of 28. In the days leading up to his passing, Taiki Shuttle wailed every time Doto was taken out to the pasture without him. On the day of his passing, while the staff removed Taiki's body from the stables, a faint cry pierced the fields of Northern Lake Farm. No matter the circumstances, time does not stop, and there is nothing to do but carry the memories of your loved ones as you press forward. Doto lost a great friend, but he was not without companions. The farm's cat, Meto, who was originally a stray, is often seen with Doto in online videos. They have grown close enough to where the cat willingly climbs onto Doto's back to rest. Additionally, there are several other horses on the farm to keep Doto company. In the summer of 2023, Ryuji Wada, TM Opera O's jockey, visited Doto, but he was met with an unpleasant reaction. Initially, Doto would not even look at him when Ryuji called his name. Only when he offered carrots did Doto finally turn around. When Ryuji had no carrots left and tried to pet Doto, he retaliated with biting. Their interaction made people believe that Doto associates the name TM Opera O to Ryuji Wada instead of the actual horse. During his racing days, Doto could sense the displeasure from his trainers and stable staff whenever the name TM Opera O came up, so it's likely that he grew to hate the name as well. In fact, if you called out TM Opera O in front of Doto, he would turn his butt to you.
TM オペラ王はどんな存在？ドトウにとって。
Normally, Doto is extremely kind towards visitors. His abnormal behavior led many fans to theorize that Meisho Doto hated Ryuji Wada because he was the human that hits my friend. On the morning of February 23rd, 2024, Meisho Doto developed colic and was immediately rushed to the hospital. Colic is a general term for abdominal pain and can be caused by a wide range of issues such as blockage in the gut or gas buildup. It is the #1 cause of death in horses, especially older horses. 1 in 10 horses are affected by colic during their lifetime. Doto's condition was stable when admitted, but at 11:20 p.m., everything drastically changed. After 3 consultations, Meisho Doto required a laparotomy, a surgical incision of the abdomen, to remove an undigested fibrous mass in his colon. The procedure was incredibly expensive and dangerous for a horse of Doto's age that most owners opted for euthanasia instead. Ultimately, the Retired Horse Association proceeded with the surgery. Luckily, there were no twists in his intestines, and any displacement returned to their normal positions after the undigested food was removed. The procedure went off without a hitch, and Meisho Doto was able to safely stand by the next morning. The hospital discharged Doto on the 25th, but he came home wearing a metal muzzle to strictly control his diet. Kawagoe-san, one of 2 caretakers for Northern Lake, painstakingly removed every hard stem from the short hay he hand-fed to Doto. Doto made a full recovery, and he had no trouble walking or running by March. As of early November 2025, Meisho Doto is still living out a healthy life at Northern Lake. On occasion, he has light inflammation on his body due to a weak immune system from old age, but they are easily treated with antibiotics. Doto's appetite is as strong as ever, and his health is well enough that he can receive visitors on a reservation basis. In fact, Meisho Doto and TM Opera O's voice actresses, Misaki Watada and Sora Tokui, paid him a visit in October. Additionally, in late October, Northern Lake started a crowdfunding campaign to build a new stable for Doto and the other horses because the current one is so old and run down that the roof is constantly leaking and partially collapsing. But his fans and the farm supporters came together and raised over 60 million yen in less than a week, which was over 4 times the goal. Doto may be the second strongest. That doesn't mean he's loved any less. It's hard to not appreciate Doto's effort and perseverance. Regardless of all the obstacles he faced as a foal, the numerous defeats in his racing career, loss of close friends, and health problems, he always pressed on until he reached the desired result. Sometimes we become so scared about failing that we cannot move forward. Life is a constant struggle. You are going to fail, but only through failures can we grow. There is always someone better. Use them as a goalpost and not an excuse. Keep chasing the person or dream in front of you. You will reach it. You will be race ready.